Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to my channel. If you're new, please don't forget to subscribe. This is Uncle Lenny. As usual, I'm out again. Today, it's another day that Uncle Lenny has to be out. And today, guys, I'm gonna do something different. And today, I'm following up a lecturing at the University of Pittsburgh. So the topic for this evening is pre-colonial Africa traditions and exploration of African indigenous knowledge. In short, I'm gonna take it up very slowly, just in case, before our colonizers get to Africa, there were kings and kingdoms. There were rules that were governing those kingdoms. And today we are being governed by the modern society. So we want to make sure that there's some research that is being done to dig deeper about how our kings and rulers were being governed. Today that's a topic, guys. So stay tuned because I'm gonna take you behind the scene and show you exactly what is going on and what are the professors are saying about our indigenous research. There are people that are doing the research about how our people were living before pre-colonial. That's a reason why if we're going to talk about colonialism, we have to go to the roots, to the bottom to it before we're going to talk about today. So today, guys, this is the video for today. Make sure you follow it up, you share it up, and make sure that you talk to your friends. Share it. Let's make sure that our friends have enough information about what is going on to then and what is going on today. Guys, stay tuned because I'm going to take you behind and show you how this topic is going to go down to.
Expand into research, but most of the time they simply remove this and they build more, and the more they bring European clothes and sell. These people walk in the street, damn it, somebody to sell. Let's finally finish with African religious tradition. African traditional religion have been historically the most numerous religion, and one of the first institutions that emerged in response to the African adjustment to and understanding of the new environment. Although each ethnic group has its own religious traditional practices with no reference to other groups, there are some similarities that they share across the part of Africa. Primarily, they all believe that there's a non-material, non-spiritual, which is supernatural. Apart from that, even that there's a spirit, no matter what, how they term it, and they all have names for that. But surprisingly, that despite the fact that there are differences, they all have something in common, and there are fundamental 5 beliefs that catapult in that part of Africa. First is that they all believe that there's a supernatural. They have different names for it. There's one powerful. And they all believe that under that God, there's some other supernatural spirits who, in Christians we say angels, all right. And they also believe that also there's a religious personality and sacred spirit, which means that to them the chief is not just a political person, it's a priest. A priest, to be a chief, you have to have a spiritual dimension, otherwise you're not a chief. So that's what it is. So that to them is religious. Then also, throughout greater part of Africa, they believe that there's life after death. In some way. So that during funeral, they take their time. Funeral to them, they are not burying the person, they are ushering the person to a new world. That's the way funeral. That's why they go to is a few days. But they want to take time and worship. And also, of course, witchcraft and magic is fundamental course. No matter how the person is highly educated, witchcraft is still believing. Alright, there's nobody so powerful, but that's it. But interestingly, the expression of this belief is found in ritual performance and healing melody. So which is that they express this belief through activities, ceremonies, and so on, and how they even deal with the idea of illness and their position. Now, interestingly, we want to look at this because of that, their way of understanding their worldview help them to interpret things. Where in certain illness, sickness is only just simply natural. In Africa, they believe that spiritual an illness can be spiritual or something like natural, if I put it that way. So we want to look at illness and their position are seen in 3 different levels in most greater part of Africa. It could be natural illness, can be spiritual illness, physical illness. The causes, for example, malaria, let me give an example, can be viewed from 3 perspectives. So that if the malaria or the fever seem to be natural, then definitely the causes will be unsanitary conditions, okay? Or sometimes maybe eating badly, or lack of cleaning or something of that sort, or maybe mosquitoes or exposure to food. But then if it cannot be solved, Africans will move further to rather conclude that malaria is spiritual. All right. Then, in other words, then the causes might be not abiding by required spiritual norms and rules, or not performing the required sacrifices through rituals. All right. You can say. Then, of course, if it's not the situation, it cut across so many Africans that definitely there's someone, a wicked person, or witchcraft. All right. It's something you don't move from their mind. They don't separate natural from spirit. They don't separate. It's part of their labor. They think their ancestors are still living around them. So because of this broader perspective of trying to treat illness, it means that the healing is going to operate. Which means that now the biomedicine, physician is just one out of several. So hospital alone is not the solution for them. It's just one aspect. So illness and their position are seen in 3 different levels. So in case it's not, or let me continue to it. So if it's biological, in case it's natural illness, then it's just the physician, okay, who dispense pharmaceuticals in treating the patients. Sometimes they can leave the hospital and go to herbalist, all right, and who actually they believe that he dispenses exclusively plant medicine, constitute something like people that the true roots and so many other things. Then, of course, they can move further. They believe that there's a diviner also. When the other standards of the move into the diviner, who actually employ divine instruments through prayers and so many other things. Then, of course, they also believe in spirit possessed medium. Right? And this was tradition that is still there. And surprisingly, when they all accepted Christianity and Muslim, interesting, they tried to interpret it from the African perspective so much. And surprising, they believe that the Bible, the Quran can heal. They believe that, and they can stand in the word and believe. So powerful. I mean, it's like that's their perspective. It means that their concept of illness moved from just hospital, it go beyond. Let me move on. And I'll show you one example. Here is one, and these things are still there, pre-colonial days, but it's still there. You go to Africa and not see people. Someone is sick, and they believe will be healed. And pray and gather around Jesus. Let's move on. And then also when we say this, that's why in Africa we say participatory. Participatory means that it's not one symbol. In Western maybe church where you have one person, when one person pray, in Africa, everybody prays at the same time because it's participatory. They believe that God can hear all of them at the same time. But another church is not where one person pray. No, they don't believe that way because participation is communal. They all shout, they all sing, they all dance. This African tradition, they are church, but it's Africanized. The concept of things are very fundamental. Let's move on. So now I want to do a summary and conclusion. That's the main reason, and look at it. We started with summary. We started with theoretical framework by looking at the nature of indigenous knowledge and its use during the pre-colonial era. And we examined the social, cultural, and political issues surrounding the ingenuity. We also discussed how, through the application of indigenous knowledge, some societies became centralized, therefore leading to establishment of kingdoms and empires. We ended by showing with some examples how these present-day societies have been able to retain the indigenous knowledge and still use it. Like we look at the market system, it's still all there. Look at the chieftaincy festival, it's still all there. It's still maintained, all right, despite the impact of modernization. We have therefore learned that the indigenous knowledge to this society is indigenous precisely because because incorporated in a way of life, part experience, part custom, religion, tribal law, and the attitudes of people towards their own lives and those of living things. To these people, the indigenous knowledge system is holistic and place-based ways of understanding the world. The knowledge is about the natural and social world that is passed down orally through stories and ceremonies, emphasizing the interconnectedness of human culture and environment. The indigenous knowledge, therefore, does not exist in decontextualized form, but it is linked, internally linked to specific context, people, and issue. Now, key character feature, very, very important here, that define the indigenous knowledge. That's important. First one, indigenous knowledge is kinship based. It means that the knowledge to them, the knowledge is deeply tied to these societies, cultural entities. In the sense that for them, the Yoruba, certain kind of medicine, to them is Yoruba. You know what I mean? It goes through a tradition that Yoruba medicine, the Zulu medicine, is kinship based, cultural based. But we wrote a information, they go through. So their Zulu, they don't need where it's coming from, it's simple based. So that's why they see it. Alright, that's what I'm saying. It's tied to this society, cultural identities, and essential for their cultural revitalization and asserting autonomy. Then the second one is knowledge is place-based. The knowledge is deeply rooted in the people's local environment and accumulated through direct contact and long-term experience. Is their environment. They don't know anywhere. If that knowledge developed around people in the forest, they don't really know anything about the Sahara Desert. It's not their fault. All that they know, it evolved from there. Those in Sahara have no idea of forest. It evolved. It's simply environmental, strong the place of the medicine becomes so fundamental. Then the third one, indigenous knowledge is temporal based. The knowledge is built on millennia and continue to develop past from generation to generation. It's historical, pass on and pass on. It's evolved. It's not just at the time, but evolved. Then the knowledge is holistic and interconnected. The knowledge helps them to view themselves as part of nature and not separate from the nature. They don't separate them from nature, they are part of the nature and connected to the nature. You can't take them from environment. So when you are sucking them from environment, it's like you are destroying them. The environment is their home. The home is spiritual. You have distorted. Let's move on. Then the last one is that is indigenous knowledge is orally transformed. How do they transform this from generation to generation? They don't write books. Those things have been oral. The knowledge is always transmitted orally through poems, storytelling, narratives, dances, music. That's where they tell the story. And the other generation play something. So let's conclude it. I will conclude by re-emphasizing the importance of the effort that Du Bois and Peter Green actually made in encouraging us to go beyond Eurocentrism and find more of that cultural possible, that specific paradigm in dealing with the issues that are more relevant to the societies we intend to study. They are therefore encouraging us to bring the indigenous knowledge, which is actually culturally based, into the center of our learning and not peripheral, and be able to provide much broader issues about the society, their cultural, social, and political issues that we intend to study. One of the ways that we as college teachers, students, can help promote the indigenous endeavor is to revisit them and incorporate the indigenous knowledge system into our studies. We need to find a way or a new method in our learning that would help address the African conditions, but this time from the indigenous Afrocentric perspective. The two areas, therefore, that I want to conclude with, or that we need to look at, is education and research. Because we can only promote this through education and research. With respect to education, there's the need to provide new educational forms of learning designed to place indigenous knowledge to the center. Gandhi, one Indian philosopher, for once observed that the curriculum and pedagogy's ideas, which form the fabric of modern education, were imported from Oxford, Cambridge, Edinburgh, and London, but they are essentially foreign to non-Western cultures. And until they are repudiated, they can never be a new non-modern education that is rooted in the indigenous cultures of the life of the people. And to quote this, or after that's powerful, it means something said, for development to accept the legitimacy of cultural epistemologies is to begin dismantling development's very foundation. It's quite interesting. First of all, he said that for you to develop something, you have to dismantle. Because what is still with you is hindering you. It's quite interesting. And then repeat it. He said for development to accept the legitimacy of cultural epistemology is to begin dismantling development very foundation. Therefore, if education does not operate independent of the development discourse, it will not speak for the values of the indigenous cultures. Education is not a value-neutral endeavor. It speaks of the values and beliefs and of its enabling discourse, unquote. The above quotation demonstrates that if education is defined as endogenous to a particular culture, then applying the already existing modern educational system is likely to be relevant. In other words, education, whether classified as formal, informal, non-formal, or extension, as Reda pointed out, is irrelevant and incapable of altering this outcome, unless it is deeply rooted in the particular societal realities of the people concerned. That's the reason why indigenous knowledge, as new episcopal, that way of knowing, becomes very relevant to the societies who live in that community, whose cultural knowledge was previously silenced and restricted by colonizations and other impacts. There is the need, therefore, to bridge the gap between our discipline so that we can or commit to find a way of incorporating some of these direct ideas and to develop synergies through our disciplinary network and to advance the production of traditional knowledge in our education. And finally, research. Research, as we all know, is a systematic process of gathering and analyzing information to answer questions, to solve problems, and to create new knowledge. It involves in-depth investigation, critical analysis, and experimentation to discover facts, test theories, and interpret data in a way that contributes to a specific field of the study. Therefore, unlike simply consuming information, research aims to generate new understanding of something that was not well known. All right. One thing that comes out of the above definition is that the new knowledge that research creates. It means that when you are doing research, you are trying to end up creating something new. All right, let's move on to create. The general goal in every research, therefore, is to discover new knowledge or to revise and expand the already existing knowledge. This means that in our case, since the primary aspect of the African indigenous knowledge already exists, or they are not new, they already exist, and cover every aspect of lives of the people, it is our duty to revise and expand this knowledge through our studies and research. This is the reason why the use of cultural specific paradigm approach is important, because it is a framework for understanding or phenomena that is based on unique characteristics, values, practices, and social context of a particular culture. Cultural specific paradigm operates on the principle that concept, behavior, and ideas are best understood within the specific cultural context. It means that I can't understand the zoo until I want to learn from that perspective. If I stand as an outsider, I can't understand. But you cannot understand the culture when you are from within the culture. Let's move on. So applying our research in this direction is likely to help us to draw upon the transformative power of indigenous knowledge that we intend to study, and to identify different problems and generate alternative solutions. Our research should follow a kind of multi-method, or we say multidisciplinary approach that brings different disciplines into the discussion. Such approach will help us to draw closer to the complex cultures we intend to study. And this is very, very important. I'm Akan. I grew up from this culture, Ashanti Akan. And this animal, all right, in a called Sankofa. Surprisingly, this animal look backward, but it can walk forward. It doesn't miss. It look backward, still walk forward. Go to the forest, see no Friday. He's looking backward and walking forward. And from account poetry, we see it as a proverb symbolizing the importance of learning from the past to build some future. He makes him move while he's looking at the past. The more you look wider, the faster he goes. It conveys the idea that the past should be incorporated into the present and the future for positive progress. Without that, nothing can happen. So I'm just going to close here, and questions we need to move around as he's going to distribute. I think he might have given that already. It's very important. We're not going to solve a problem, but it's a problem. We are not here to solve a problem. There's something that we need to go through. And I want to gradually read, and I'll just step out. Okay. First of all, is what is African digital knowledge itself? Okay. And why should we even learn it? It's very important here. Then the other one is that why is the digital knowledge relevant to begin with? And how can we apply it in our current situation? And what role can the knowledge play in academic education? And what ways can it be integrated into our educational system? And what kind of educational research method within the system, all right, can be used, okay, to achieve our goal in our research area? Then what are some critical aspects of this knowledge that can address contemporary, all right, challenges we are facing in Africa? Then how can this knowledge be interface that's connected with the new technology development in the economy? Because you're struggling that now there's modern, and this one is indigenous. So how does it connect to that? And then there's how can this knowledge inform a sustainable development, environmental conservation or social justice initiative? Then also, how can Africa state and regional institutions integrate this type of knowledge system into national development and environmental policies without subordinating them to Western epistemology? All right. Then also, how can this knowledge foster cross-cultural understanding and collaborative that brings students and scholars all the way together into the research? Then we have the last three. Then how can this knowledge be used to empower local communities and drive positive changes in the continent? How can we preserve and promote this knowledge to the outside world without threatening its existence? Then finally, how can the knowledge and what we found in Africa, religious, political, as we said already, will help to shape new approaches to sustainable community health and that is governance today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, bro. This was really insightful. So now we open the floor for questions.